So the Odyssey released this past weekend, and it's actually doing pretty decent at the box office. So right here from Variety, the Odyssey defied box office expectations with a $264.1 million global opening, the biggest of Christopher Nolan's career so far. IMAX accounted for $51.8 million, or 23%, nearly 1 in 4 of ticket sales, standing as the company's biggest opening in like-for-like markets above Avengers Endgame. The IMAX gross is currently pacing ahead of Oppenheimer, which got off to a $35 million start in IMAX and ended its run with $180 million, roughly 20% of overall revenues. If you don't see the Odyssey in IMAX, you aren't seeing the way that Christopher Nolan intended, the company's CEO Richard Gelfond told Variety after opening weekend. Now, yes, the Odyssey is doing good. And I know there's a lot of speculation right now of them buying fake tickets and selling out theaters. I think that's anecdotal. I don't know how much is happening on a mass scale, but even in my local theaters, I try to watch it in IMAX, or I wanted to see if I could watch it in IMAX this week. And yeah, every single time slot, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, evening, late night, all of them in IMAX, they're all nearly sold out. So people are going to watch it. Now, yeah, there might be some anecdotes of strange things happening, but overall, it doesn't matter. They're still grossed $260 million. This is the biggest of Christopher Nolan's career. Now, yes, because of inflation, because of new markets, like that number is a little different. There's a little more context here. From here, Aesthetica says here, over 10 million less people went to see the Odyssey in theaters on opening weekend than to see Nolan's Dark Knight movies, which were both very good. Deadpool and Wolverine, another R-rated movie, also had 10 million more people to see it just 2 years ago. The propaganda propping up the Odyssey is falling apart. I don't think so. Where, yes, less people went to see it opening weekend, but it's still making money. It's still making money. So, right here, yeah, estimated bodies. And then these are domestic opening price. Domestic. So, the opening weekend this weekend also accounts for international viewers, but domestically, his The Dark Knight Rises, Deadpool and Wolverine, Barbie, Toy Story 5, Super Mario Galaxy movie actually grossed more domestically than the Odyssey. And that kind of makes sense. Because why? Because the Odyssey is very contentious here. But international audiences don't actually care so much about American cultural issues. They just want to see a good movie. And Christopher Nolan has solidified himself as the quote-unquote best Hollywood director today in modern Hollywood. And I always say this. I've said this publicly. I think Christopher Nolan's overrated. I think he's pretentious. I think he tries so hard to be a smart person that what results is a convoluted mess of a film. The best films are simple but profound, and they tell a good story with timeless messages and timeless themes, with a solid narrative structure, with a good plot, with compelling characters, good writing, good acting, of course, good practical effects, set design. All those things contribute to a good film. I think Christopher Nolan is pretentious, and I think he is propped up and astroturfed by people who think that he is what a lot of these activists think a good filmmaker is. When I'm not saying his films are all terrible, but half of his discography, his filmography, his films, I think they're overrated. They're absolutely overrated. But yeah, so all that being said, what is the takeaway? What is the takeaway? There's a lot of people who say they liked it, and a lot of people don't. But first of all, I do want to touch on, again, the representation part. So the entire cast isn't Greek. None of them were Greek. And there's a lot of people who are responding to this by saying, oh yeah, look at these superheroes. Look at Superman and Supergirl. They're not Kryptonian. None of these people are Kryptonian. Same logic, huh? And it's like, dude, why are you acting like Greek people don't exist and didn't exist? And we know this they don't hold the same standard to anything else that isn't of Western origin. Why? Because with Moana, they were freaking out that all the casting for Moana has to be people of Polynesian descent. And they said it's such a celebration of Polynesian culture and heritage. And that's also a fake story. Moana didn't happen. Would you be okay if sub-Saharan Africans and Scandinavians and Mongolians played Moana or Maui? Would you be okay with that, playing the village chief? No, they would have an outrage. But then, because it's a Western myth, because it's a Western epic, because it's Greek, they're okay with it. You have to understand that, like, stop buying into the framing. And the most annoying thing is conservatives this weekend saying it's not woke. Stop pearl clutching. And literally, they buy into the frame of the left. They buy into the liberal framework of, it's just a little bit. Elliot Page was there for 5 minutes. Lupita Nyong'o was there only for 3 minutes. Stop being a drama queen. It doesn't affect the overall film. Who cares about skin color? You're so superficial. Why do you care about skin color representation? Oh, are you just a leftist? If you just care about skin color representation, then oh yeah, you're just like the left we're fighting against. They literally give credence and leeway to the left. Ben Shapiro, literally, he gave the Odyssey a 9 out of 10. He said it was a fantastic film. And he says it doesn't matter that Greek representation was there because who cares? It's a fake story. And like Greek people aren't white. They're not European. Watch this. The short clip. And you can watch the full review, but it's nonsense.
It doesn't take me out of the film that there's a multiracial cast. If you want to make a case everybody needs to be Greek to be authentic, I think you can make that case. If you want to make a case everybody has to be white, I think that is a lesser case because white people and Greek are not quite the same thing.
So the multi-ethnic cast doesn't take him out of the film. Of course it does. Of course it does. A 3,000-year-old Greek epic having, again, yes, or maybe he encountered Ethiopians in the beginning of the Odyssey. Odysseus did. Yeah, sure. In that role, fine. Have some Ethiopians. But then to have a black woman who's not even the most beautiful black woman. There's tons of beautiful black women you could have chosen from, by the way. But instead of choosing a fair-skinned, golden-haired woman to play Helen of Troy, which is how she's depicted in the Odyssey, no. Picks a black woman. Of course that's going to take you out of the film. But Ben Shapiro, like, something tells me actually that if Jewish stories or Jewish myths were disrespected or race swapped or trans swapped, yeah, something tells me that Ben Shapiro would have gone to war with Christopher Nolan and had a complete meltdown. But because it's Greek mythology, because it's Western stories that are being desecrated, no. Who cares? Why do you care so much about skin color, gang? It doesn't take me out of the story. Yeah, you think that Greek people are white? No, they're not. Yeah, like maybe you can make the argument that a lot of Greek people are swarmy, but for most of Greek history and also in Greek mythology, yes, they were by all accounts white. They're European. They are Europeans. That's what white just means. White just means European. That's why they see Russians as white. Why? Because they're Eastern Europeans. But I know they're in Asia technically, but they're Europeans. Can you imagine? I know this sounds maybe sounds terrible, but like if you had, like, maybe this is not a good analogy because Anne Frank was historical, but like the Diary of Anne Frank, you make a movie and you make Anne Frank black, or you make Anne Frank trans. You think Ben Shapiro would be like, who cares about skin color, gang? No. Because it's identity politics for me, but no for thee. Or what a better example, Schindler's List, okay? Schindler's List. Schindler's List is, you know, a historical fiction story. And I actually liked the movie. I thought it was really good. Liam Neeson did a great job. But imagine if you had, let's say you had, I don't know, Chadwick Boseman. We play the role instead of Liam Neeson. Rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But had him play instead of Liam Neeson. You think that Ben Shapiro would be, oh yeah, let's just skin color, gang. Who cares? If you had a bunch of, you know, Arabs, or maybe that's kind of like similar to Jewish ancestry because they're like Middle East, but like let's say a bunch of Koreans, okay? If we had a bunch of Koreans, little Korean children play Jewish children in these concentration camps in Schindler's List, Would you think he'd be okay with that? No. Because it's literally identity politics for me. I can be proud of my Jewish heritage and respect Jewish heritage, but you as a European, you're not allowed to. And I'm not trying to counter-signal Ben. I've met him before. He's actually a very polite, cordial person. But we have to call out the stupidity of just bending over backwards and saying, and accepting the framing and the arguments of the left and saying, oh yeah, like who cares about skin color? You're just freaking out. Who cares about trans people being shoved into the most epic, foundational Greek mythological story of all time that literally is the archetype of the hero's journey? That's where he comes from. Oh yeah, who cares? Why are you such a nut job? Why do you care so much? Yeah, Dave Rubin here too as well, talking about how much he loved Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey and how it's a masterpiece.
I'm going to just address this for 1 minute. I'm not going to give you any spoilers or anything, but if you do not want to hear anything about anything, you might want to mute for the next 60 seconds. But I'm not going to give any spoilers. I'm not going to say a word about the plot. I want to talk a little bit for a moment about the narrative around it, because, we covered, and everybody online was covering that there was going to be all this wokeness in the movie, and the admittedly odd casting of Elliot Page, who was Ellen Page, a beautiful young girl who Nolan had worked with in Inception, and she was in X-Men and a bunch of stuff. And then Lupita Nyong'o was in it, which was obviously miscast because the chances that back then, 3,000 plus years ago, although it is a fictitious story, that there would have been a black woman. There was all this stuff. And everybody, and what I said last week when we covered it was, you know what, I'm not going to get pre-outraged. I was curious about some of the casting for sure. And as it comes to anything that comes out of Hollywood, I'm always worried about the wokeness stuff. But I was like, I just didn't want to prejudge it. I just want to say one quick thing about the movie. It was spectacular. It really, I tweeted it was a masterpiece. I tweeted it was an absolute masterpiece. The responses were psychotic. If you go on Twitter and look at the responses to that tweet, psychotic. And I don't know if, people were like, did you get, who bought you out? Who paid you to say this and everything? I don't know, I went to a movie with a couple friends. And then I had a thought about the movie. But I will just say this quick. If your argument is that it wasn't a perfect adaptation of the 3,000-year-old story, the Odyssey, right, by Homer, right, then look, I read it when I was in high school. I don't even fully remember the story. It's I think 24 different poems that were within to create the whole story.
We can cut.
If your argument is that it wasn't,
he's just yapping now, and yeah, and so a lot of people a lot of leftists are using Ben Shapiro and Dave Rubin to say, look, even right wingers like the Odyssey. All the people complaining about wokeness in this film, you guys are just miserable chuds who don't know how to enjoy anything good in life. And this is the problem. This is the problem with principled conservatives. That they literally give ammo and ammunition to the left constantly. And when push comes to shove, they will side with the left. That's what these principled conservatives do. Like, I don't know. That's why also these principled conservatives go after J.D. Vance. Because J.D. Vance is one of the actual, good guys, I would say, in politics who understands the issues for the right wing in America. Yeah, but they go after him. Remember, famously, Ben Shapiro said, I don't care about the browning of America. Skin color doesn't matter. I don't care about skin color. Why do you care so much about skin color? Why are you so superficial? And we've covered extensively on this program that it's not just skin color. Who we are genetically is a part of the heritage, and our genealogy, our ancestry is part of who we are, is part of our identity. This is why if someone looks at me, they will know that I'm Korean, or at least from the Far East, and I come from that area for thousands of years because that's what I look like. That's how people identify each other first and foremost. It's about what you look like. If your facial features were different, then people would not recognize you as the person that you are. This whole idea that your appearance is superficial is such nonsensical anthropology. It's literally, no one actually believes this. They're also psyoped and brainwashed and conditioned into repeating these nonsensical talking points. But of course, yes, the foundational myth of Greek civilization, of Greco-Roman civilization, of Western civilization, the Odyssey, the Iliad. Yes, actually these things do matter. And once you start to race swap and trans swap and desecrate these myths, yes, of course, what ensues is demoralization and deracination. And that's what the left wants. And conservatives keep buying into it, saying, I'm not playing identity politics. Look at me, I'm a principled conservative. I like the Odyssey. Stop being such a Debbie Downer, such a party pooper. It's not woke. Just the casting is a little bit woke. No, the very existence of the film is woke. And so I'm not one of those people who are like, you have to boycott this per se, because the reality is, I understand this. We covered this extensively on this program, that people always say that vote with your dollar. Most people won't vote with their dollar because most people are not truly capable of self-governance, truly speaking, in the actual like most distilled sense of self-governance. They will just kind of do what they want to do with the money that they have. And so the solution isn't, oh yeah, people are going to rise up and boycott this movie, because that was just never going to happen because it's a Christopher Nolan movie. But the solution has to be top down and the right to capture the institutions. That's what has to happen. So, but that being said, it's like, dude, like, I'm not even like mad at people for watching it. I'm not even, because it's like, people, you have to review it. You have to give your thoughts on it as a commentator. I get that. But what I am mad about is that people watch it and then conservatives give it raving reviews. Because why? I'm a principled conservative. I don't try to see politics in everything. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, you're the reason why we lose. You're the reason why we lose. We can't protect anything. And you have to understand how powerful stories are. Stories are more powerful than debates and logic. Most people are not motivated by rationale and logic. They're motivated by what? Stories. That's why Jesus literally, in all of his ministry, what did he do? He spoke in parables, because it's through stories that affected, like, messaging and propaganda. Truly, it's effective. It's through stories. And foundational myths, legends, stories, history is what binds a people and gives a people an identity. And once you start to tear that down and subvert it, yeah, that's when you get demoralization and deracination and people who don't know who they are. And that is this whole agenda. That is the whole point of the Odyssey. You have to understand this. But conservatives are still like, no, you're just freaking out. It's like, okay, dude, like, the whole facts don't care about your feelings nonsense is such BS, because no, feelings don't care about your facts. And what moves the heart of man is stories. Are stories. And then these stories, if they are subverted, yes, then the left will use them to get their way in society. Do you not understand? And conservatives are so terrible with this. This is why conservatives lose constantly in the culture. They always give credence to the left and always leeway to the left, and they acquiesce to the left and say, look, I'm such a principled conservative. I'm not like one of those radicals over there who actually have standards and principles that they want to, hold to. So annoying. And so you have Rotten Tomatoes here. And so, of course, we covered that the Odyssey didn't have a huge opening weekend domestically, but it did internationally. But right here, the big discovery on Rotten Tomatoes for the Odyssey, the real audience score is sitting at 56%, not the fake 97% they're showing with their verified audience BS. A Kotaku in Action user on the subreddit Kotaku in Action figured out how to see the actual numbers behind RT's manipulation. Exactly what we've been saying. Real people are dragging this butchered mess, but Rotten Tomatoes is bending over backwards to protect it. And so essentially, in summary, this Reddit user says that they pulled up the JavaScript, and then they showed that clearly the JavaScript showed that the score sits at 56%. And so this whole verified audience nonsense that Rotten Tomato does is so that they prevent review bombing. But what's the point of having an audience score and not let the audience give their reviews and scores? So it's all astroturf nonsense where all the film critics love it. Of course they love it because they're left-wing activists. But actually the American public doesn't love it all that much. Now you're going to have, of course, most Americans are normies, so they're going to enjoy it and they're going to like it and they're not going to see a problem with it. But yes, like those who value the Odyssey and they value historicity and they value art and good representation of art, yeah, they're not going to like this film because it is a complete desecration of anything that is considered art or filmmaking. So what is the point of having an audience score if you're going to not allow a huge section of that audience to vote and to give their opinions and their ratings? So, of course, this is all astroturfed. Like we said, I said this before too, that the Odyssey is Hollywood's last stand for wokeness. If it does well, then it gives them permission to continue wokeness, put the pedal to the metal, and floor it on wokeness. If it fails, then their wokeness project dies in Hollywood. Unfortunately, it looks like it's doing well, so they're gonna completely go balls to the wall and green light, full throttle on wokeness, in my opinion. And yeah, that's what they're going to do. Like the success of Odyssey, the Odyssey is going to give Hollywood the green light to go full throttle on wokeness. So wokeness isn't dead. The right needs to stop doing this, snake oil pitch saying woke is dead, chuds win. Like, of course, we can celebrate our victories. I'm not saying we always have to black pill, but you have to be reality pilled. That we enjoyed victories like Trump in office, lowest migration rate into America ever in like recent history. We have wins and wins and wins against trans, quote unquote, rights. We had the Dobbs decision overturned, which kind of proved to be a little bit politically hurtful, actually, for the cause of the right, which is, something that maybe I'll cover later in a different segment. But yeah, we enjoyed a brief taste of minor victories in politics and in the culture war. And then what did we do with those victories? Well, we proceeded to, after the death of Charlie Kirk, devour each other with Egyptian conspiracy theories, Egyptian planes, beekeepers, Mossad, purple shirts, maroon shirts, and just absolute pure retardation and infighting. And so, of course, the left's going to win. They're going to bulldoze over us very soon. So the right needs to wake up and realize that the left, they're going to come, and woke 2.0, dark woke as they're calling it, it's going to come in full force very soon because the Odyssey gave them permission. When all these woke movies are dying, the Odyssey's like, hey, look, we're going to be woke, but not actually woke. And then so many conservatives fell for it. That's why I appreciate Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh didn't fall for it. He actually gave very good thoughts on it. And they're going to go full force. So it's not going to be like the trans person that we just showed you today where they're freaking out like, microaggressions, she's not misgendering me, right? But it's that same temperament and psychopathy, but it's going to be channeled into what? Unbridled violence, terrorism, psychopathy, and cultural subversion. So understand that this dark woke is going to be truly an existential, civilizational, even like our lives will be on the line. There will be a threat to all of us. And if the Trump admin doesn't do anything in the next 2 years, yeah, we're kind of screwed, I think. I think we're in for a really, really dark next few years. So politically, we have to win. We have to crack down on illegals and foreigners. America has to get the SAVE Act passed. They have to get the cultural institutions under control. And here's the thing. I mentioned this earlier, but the average person and the international viewer, they see AstroTurf prestige and they eat slop, do not question, consume product like told, okay? So that's how the average person functions. They defer to whatever they deem to be prestigious and have name recognition. Anything that they deem to have legitimacy in the culture and in politics, that's who they defer to. So unless the right takes over institutions that hold prestige, name recognition, and legitimacy in the eyes of the general public, yeah, the right will continue to lose. I'm sorry, they will. Because Hollywood still controls so much of our culture. As much as you want to think that they don't, they do. Even you look at, I think this is actually a perfect example. Look at iShowSpeed. iShowSpeed is a streamer, and you might think, oh, he's independent, he's doing his own thing. Well, how did he get even bigger? It's through institutional approval and elevation. He performed at the FIFA World Cup final on Sunday. The FIFA World Cup, FIFA as a general body, it is a very strong global institutional power, culturally and even politically. You think about who gets propped up, especially these streamers, right? They do collaborations with K-pop groups from official agencies. They do collaborations with actors, celebrities. Yeah, that's what gives these streamers and these organic content creators legitimacy. It is if they have the validation of established institutions. And so if the right doesn't take it over or create new institutions that have prestige or name recognition, yeah, we're not going to win. So the alternative, we shouldn't be so obsessed about creating alternatives. We should be obsessed as the right of taking back the institutions that we built. That's the end goal, and that should be the end goal. So to those conservatives who say, oh, you're just freaking out about race swap and you just care about skin color so much. No, you shouldn't take foundational Western civilizational myths and be okay with the subversion of them and pretending that it's for everyone and anyone. So anyone from any background should be able to play and participate in these legends and these myths. They're not for everyone. They are for the West. And those who are not of the West, they can enjoy them. But to try to universalize it for everyone and to gaslight everyone that skin color doesn't matter. Oh yeah, your ethnic origin, your ancestry doesn't matter. Yeah, we're sick of it. We're sick of it. No more. No more! So the Odyssey is going to win, but the right needs to understand how to move forward. And I think most normie conservatives don't. So not the black pill, but we have to be good on the issues, I hope. So I'm not saying don't watch the Odyssey. What I am saying is, yeah, we have to understand how to navigate this properly moving forward.